This is the Okayest Hunter podcast. Never pass on shooter bucks, because that's just meat in the freezer. It's your tag, you hunt how you want. This is Okayest Hunter.
Howdy, and welcome to the Okayest Hunter podcast, coming at you from the Okayest Hunter podcast studio here in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, where things got really weird before we hit the record button tonight. Yeah.
When don't things get weird?
I don't know.
Things are always weird.
Let's get that a little closer to your mouth there. How's that?
Hello?
Is that better?
Step up speaking to the microphone.
There it
Good?
is.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think
Check.
so.
Okay.
Mic check.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope
They look
that's right.
cooler when they're over here.
They totally do.
Hey, guys and gals. Another awesome week here. It's coming off of a gigantic kid birthday party. I think my house still looks like a bomb went off. You guys were
It
here.
was super fun, though.
Yeah, it was.
Kids had a blast.
Yeah, maybe that's what my deal is today. I don't know. I use my iPad to run the speaker outside, which could have been the mistake. I really don't understand, but essentially it just stopped broadcasting our video. And I don't know how to... I set it up once a long time ago, and it worked magically, and I didn't want to breathe on it, and
Blame it on the
something
crickets.
happened.
Crickets got in it.
It's crazy. Anyway, shout out to Spartan Forge for sponsoring our goofy selves over here and being our premier sponsor. They are the premier mapping application in the whitetail world, and I've been on it heavily this week.
Good to hear.
Just all up in it. Like I've been looking at like
you were
old.
in a tree on Spartan Forge.
Oh my
I
gosh.
was in that tree for a while. And
How much have you gone through the other dates of pictures of the UAV, like back in time, to like see winter pattern versus summer pattern, like with growth and paths and things like that in deer trails?
I've done it some, but I don't flip constantly. I usually just flip it between like summer and then like your fall, winter,
Okay.
as soon as leaf off was. So I'm not flipping constantly, but I do. I mean,
Like I'm
depending on
like,
the area.
oh, is that a buck bed? Like that's kind of where I'm at. I'm holy cow! It's just so detailed. Someone shared like a drone video of these
Those
bucks looking up at the drone, and someone's like, basically Spartan Forge.
Oh, Spartan Forge is a little closer.
Yeah. Anyway, we're also great friends and partners and pals with the folks at Latitude Outdoors. Be sure to check those guys out. Anybody we're mentioning, feel free to use the code OHP at the checkout, and you'll save some money. I'm getting into the saddle this week in my yard a bunch to just kind of go through the motions at the base of the tree and go through some mock setups and shooting as much as I can with the limited amount of time that I have left here. And I'll be hunting out of the saddle because that's all I have. I don't have I shouldn't say that. I do have tree stands, but they're just old.
The saddle will work perfect.
Settle or be fine.
Yeah. And then I'll be flinging the new Vector ZMRs. I got 2 of them on display here in the studio because I got a couple of them right now. I got 12. So I'm okay for a little bit. I want to get the new broadheads, but I don't think they're out yet.
No, they're not.
They're dropping soon.
They should be dropping soon. But right now, it's pre-order. So
Yeah.
Get on there and order some. When you get them, start testing.
Yeah. And then if we happen to have any luck this weekend, we can tag out on Go Wild and tag our trophy over there, log it, whatever you want to call it. And you can log your time against the hunt also, even if you don't get anything, and you'll get a bunch of points. And when you get those points, you can redeem them for discounts or free stuff even. So
Free is good.
timetogowild.com. Again, use code OHP. You can buy our hats over there. You can buy all sorts of products over there. And then you can even like select the gear that you're using so other people can see how you got it done. So everyone really wants to see Derek's setup and Greg's setup. And no one wants to see mine. Although some of our stuff is not available yet over there because they only work with so many brands, but that's growing and evolving and changing. So if you add something,
Gear.
yeah, like last year I added Iron Will broadheads and they're not on there, but
No.
you can add them.
But I added them 2 years ago when I first started.
Yeah. So even if
So-
it's not something that's like there, you can still add it, which is kind of cool. But if it is there, then that means people can buy it from their platform. So just a neat thing overall. I think it's pretty cool. Matt said, nice hats, guys. Yeah, nice hats indeed. We have new hats. I should probably talk about that before we bring on our guest.
Head's feeling nice and warm.
Very warm.
Yeah.
Greg and I had to do something to differentiate because we showed up tonight wearing the same shirt.
Matching shirts.
Yeah,
and
and
matching
pants too, almost. Jeez, you guys.
Yeah, we
Same
didn't even
shirt.
coordinate this.
Those are
No.
the shirts are from Oak Tree Dreams, right?
Yes, they are.
And the hats are
True,
from
Bob.
OK Hunter.
I don't want to stretch this out on you.
Yeah, we
guys.
probably
No, I mean, those are.
Put the
I mean, you
merch-
could probably
put the
have
merch-
those ones.
put the merch back, man.
We have the ones that say Shooter Buck also, but I just don't have those ones here. So
Cool.
yeah, new stuff. And then we had a new sweatshirt that hit the website last night. Did the another Deerwoods one.
Sweet.
So yeah. Anyway, that's it's kind of crazy. You guys having a good week? You guys feel stressed as I do right now?
Man, my week started interesting. I was on my way. I got up early to get some coffee stuff for school because I got like a little Keurig at school, a little coffee station for anybody who needs that caffeine bump. So I got up early, ran to the grocery store, picked up some to-go cups, some more coffee, and some creamer, and made it about 15 minutes down the road. And my colleague texted me and she said, "Hey, did you hear? There's no school today." And I was like, she's messing with me. Like, of course there's school today. And I'm like, oh, BS. She's like, no, we just got this message. And she sent me a screenshot and it did say that. And I was like, well, where are you? Are you at school? She's like, well, no, I was on my way. I turned around and went back. Turns out no power.
Hey,
Yeah.
That's
so
a
they
win.
get power back till 11. So no school. So I had a weird day. I got to do some projects and get out in the woods scouting yesterday.
yeah, you found the freshest deer sign I've ever seen. An actual deer.
I watched a deer poop it out.
That's pretty cool. Scarf it up and poop it out.
Oh my
I
gosh.
watched him eat the acorns. There was
Well-
a doe like right from me.
I want to bring on our guest, so I feel bad because we're already 30 minutes in, and we were supposed to be doing this 30 minutes ago, and just tech stuff has been out of control. So
TikTok.
yeah, that's not from TikTok, but I do want to welcome our guest on the show, Aaron Hebeisen, and I think I got your last name right. If you want to unmute yourself, Aaron, and join the chat here, I think we can hear you.
We're reading lips, aren't we?
I think. Oh, I know why. Hey, Aaron, can you hear us okay?
I can.
Welcome to the show. I think I got your name correct. I don't know if you heard it because I had the phone part on mute, but it's Aaron Hebeisen with the Backcountry Hunters and Anglers. And we're going to be talking about some really interesting things tonight for those that don't know and want to sound really smart. Wildlife ecology, but you're the chapter coordinator for Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, and Missouri.
I am. Yeah. You're building me up too much though. Now I'm gonna look like pressure's on.
We didn't even talk about the boots yet.
Boot specialist.
I do have it in the title of the episode, so we'll see where the conversation takes us. But yeah, we'll just start out a little bit by talking about how you got into hunting and how you got into wildlife ecology and whatever that journey looks like. Give us the elevator pitch on your life's journey. Sum it up in your life's journey in a minute. See, ready to go.
Okay. All right. All right. So grew up hunting in Minnesota. Started, I think, like a lot of us did or do in the Midwest. You know, you start at deer camp at 12 years old and you're sitting around a card table and there's this haze of cigar smoke that's over the table. And, you know, it's the uncles and the grandpas and you're learning how to mix a drink at 12 years old because you can't drink them. So you might as well mix them for somebody and dealing 5-card draw. And that was kind of what was the start of getting into hunting. But my grandpa was a big safari club member. And so he traveled all around the world, Africa a few times, Alaska, New Zealand. And there was always trophies that he came home with. And it was a kind of a unique way of getting into wildlife because I'd sit there and read Sport the Field or look at a wildebeest and a hartebeest on the wall and go, why are those different? Like, and really broke down like scientific names and the nerd out stuff of, you know, how fast does this animal run versus this? And why does, you know, a bison eat a different diet than a antelope? You know, those kind of things that really like got me into the nerdy scientific side of things. But it was all on these animals that had been hunted. So I think that's what really kind of drove me to pay more attention to different wildlife around the world, and which led to going to college at Iowa State for a wildlife degree in, I guess the official title was animal ecology. And through that, started working for the USDA They've got a big facility in Ames, Iowa. And so I was an intern there working in wildlife disease research. And through that, it just kind of ping-ponged to different opportunities. So I got to come up to, while I was a student in southeastern Minnesota in 2010 when there was a big CWD spike, and sit in a trailer and extract lymph nodes, pull out lymph nodes from deer and see if they were positive for CWD. And that kind of cemented like I said, the scientific side of things. And then, fast forward to worked a little bit on and off with the USDA and DNR. And then, now I took a little hiatus and worked in the boot industry for Irish Setter as the hunting boot specialist there in customer service. So if you called customer service and had a question about Irish Setter boots, I was the guy who answered the phone for 3.5 years. And now I've been with Backcountry Hunters and Anglers since about March.
That's a journey, man. And you did that really well. I think you did sum that up in about 60 seconds. That's
That was
impressive.
amazing. Well done, sir. Well done.
That's quite the career. The
I was like, timeline.
The USDA, isn't that like food, and meat processing, right?
Yeah. So typically that's what people think of, USDA grade beef or whatever. But they also have their animal research facilities. So they were the ones that were looking into swine flu, bird flu, bovine tuberculosis, which, they all deal with domestic pigs, domestic birds and cows, but they also deal with bison and deer and migrating geese and ducks and wild pigs. So they've got their wildlife side of things too, and that was the I guess piece that I worked for.
Yeah, I never knew that they had that wildlife side and studied kind of the natural side. That's pretty cool.
And they kind of have their hands full right now with all the avian bird flu going on in the wild flocks of waterfowl.
Yeah, for sure. When I was there, they were that was kind of during the first bout of avian flu. So there was like certain buildings that were total lockdown. I mean, we're talking like tarp tented in, looked like they were fogging for mosquito or fogging for roaches or something like that in there, but they were having it all on super lockdown, and you had to thumbprint scan into some of these rooms.
Oh my God.
And it was pretty intense. Like, you're there as a kid, and I never really thought much of it. I'm like, oh, this is the job. And then you kind of take a 40,000 foot view of it, and you're like, holy smokes, I had to have 6 months of background checks from the FBI to be able to do this job.
Oh,
and
wow.
I'm 22. What do I know?
Yeah, squeaky clean at 22. Well, maybe, some of us.
Right.
I don't know if I was
Yeah, they
we'll
they went
you,
and interviewed like grade school teachers and my high school hockey team parents to be like, is this due to terrorists? I get these high school hockey buddies of mine calling and being like, why is my dad getting a call about you from the FBI? I was like, just answer it, whatever. Just make me sound
do
good.
whatever they tell you, man.
I need to go to work.
You don't want to know what's going to happen if you say something bad about
Oh my
me.
gosh, that's funny. So
It was really bad when I had to go interview my college roommates in this like super dingy apartments that are like beer stained floors, and I'm like, yeah, this screams model citizen.
it's pretty great, actually. How funny is that? They're probably like, oh God, this is just part of the
Right.
job. Yeah.
OKSD ecologist.
God, I don't know about that. So talk about like what is your definition, if you have one, for wildlife ecology, and what can we learn from that? As the season is like on the horizon right now today for most states. They're either already open or about to open. And so what can we extract from you to learn more about deer so we can hunt them successfully? Or just some interesting facts, honestly. How would you define it? And let's see where that takes us.
Yeah, I guess I would define like ecology as like the systems of biodiversity, different, environmental elements. So if a person is really into plants, that's dendrology. And you're into mammals, that's mammalogy. If you're really into snakes and reptiles, that's herpetology. And so there's all of these really like specific pieces of segments that can really like narrow in and be really, really specific and filtered down. But ecology is kind of the overwhelming system of all of that stuff. The air, the water, the trees, the animals, and how they all kind of like systematically work together.
It's a good definition.
Dang.
That's a big definition. There's a lot going on there.
It's like the important part, though, because like studying anything, by itself individually is just like one small piece of the puzzle, and like how they interact and how, the population of one species might be affected because of something totally different. And if you study that one thing, you're never going to get the whole picture.
For every action, there's
it's like the practical science.
Reaction, and it might not be a positive reaction either.
Right. You can know everything there is to know about deer and how deer work and how they pattern, how they move, when to hunt them, looking at moon phases. But if you don't know like what's happening in the environment around them, whether that's predators or temperature, drought, like all of those things play into the ecology of deer.
And that's the stuff. Well, I think we were talking about this last week a little bit. Like, if you saw a deer one season doing something or several deer doing something, there's so many variables to why that deer was there. Like you talk about even just destination food plots and crop fields or egg fields. Like maybe last year it was beans and this year it's corn. That changes things. And that's something that you can visibly see. But then, like you said, drought, or in this most recent case, we had how many inches of rain fell in the last 2 days?
6+ inches of rain, where we've had almost 3 years worth of drought, and the swamps and marshes have been
How many
dry.
bucks were just bedding back there all summer long because it was dry and they could?
And now
they're kicked out. Yeah. And that's a change. And that's a change this season that might not be applicable next season. We scouted an area that was pretty dry. Looked like it could have been like a small pond. I bet you there's a small pond there now.
I bet you there's probably 2 feet of water in there.
I would be willing to bet you there's a fair amount, and it's pretty darn sopping wet.
Yeah. And those are just a couple of the variables. But that also has an impact on predation and how they live in the environment too. And so there's just always this moving and shifting of like tectonic plates of the environment. How do you begin to understand that stuff? It's like economics. Like if you move this lever, these things change. And when those things change, those things change. How do you understand that stuff? Like, how do you begin to? Economics is hard enough, and that's like money and markets. Wildlife and wild game, like that we don't get to visibly see all the time. What? And maybe you'd be a really big fan of Spartan Forge with what they've done with, deer colored information and how they've built some AI around that over millions of data points. Like they're an interesting use case of how we can understand animals.
For sure. Yeah, I'll take ecology over economics every day.
Ecology for 10. Yeah.
But I mean, I said the same thing this year about, waterfowl. Last year, it was really, really hard on the ducks because it was so dry, especially like out in North Dakota where there was, this huge drought year. And so all these little sloughs and marshes and ponds that normally house, 70% of the nation's ducks and duck hatches, it was way, way, way down. And so the thought was, well, this is going to hurt duck numbers a lot. But those living ducks had to go somewhere. And so are they going to come over to the Mississippi Flyway and move over to between the Minnesota-Wisconsin line? Or are they going to fly farther west and head towards the mountains? And that's just one piece of it. And so you're thinking, well, duck numbers are going to be really, really down this year. But then we add predation into it as well. And so there's, any number of things that you're like, well, we can't really point to one thing. It's like when someone asks you, like, why do you hunt? Like, who points to one thing with that? Like, there's always a number of things that go into it, whether it's the challenge or the food, or, testing yourself, the interest in animals. Like, there's so many parts and pieces. It's really hard to point to any one thing. And I mean, for us in Minnesota, deer is the same thing. Northern Minnesota has lower deer numbers. They don't have as much agriculture. And so that alone, you're thinking, well, okay, maybe that's the one thing that plays into why there's lower deer numbers up here. But then you add in predation, whether that's wolves or coyotes or, what have you. you really can't point to one thing. Climate change might be changing. The length of the season, longer, snowless, less frozen time means ticks are living longer. Ticks that live longer can affect deer for a longer time period in the year. And that's going to allow them to have more potential to get sick, more potential to transmit to other deer. And all of that could be, well, maybe that's why it's different than it's been in the past. So it's one thing to kind of keep an eye on, like, you can't really point to one piece or another. You can speculate, but until you really break down the year to year on each of those things, and then compile all that data, like, you're kind of just guessing.
Now, Aaron, is that what happened? I know, 10, 12 years ago maybe, and I could be wrong, but I know the moose population in northern Minnesota took a really big hit. They lost thousands of animals, and a lot of what I read said that it was based on ticks. They had such bad tick infestations that they were rubbing, their almost like their fur or hides off, and then having problems in the winter with frostbite and freezing. Is that a part of what happened with them? Like, the tick populations were bad for a year or two, and then that played a toll in it, or what happened there?
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely a piece of it. So that's one thing that they've kind of speculated caused a lot of that moose decline, was the longer summers, longer fall, less frozen time in the year, killed off less ticks. And so there was people that were reporting moose that were covered in 30,000 ticks or something ridiculous like that. And so those ticks, and then also brainworm was another one that was similar. It was something that was living longer throughout the year, gave more time for the animals to be affected, and then transmit from animal to animal without that freeze off. And so that, certainly hurt. You heard local reports of, well, there's more wolves on the landscape. We need to get rid of more wolves. That's why all these moose are dying out. It's like, well, maybe, but it can't be the only thing that's causing this. Like, we have to look at, there's always been that many wolves on the landscape. Why now is this piece different?
Yep.
And so trying to take a step back, and like I said, a lot of it's guesswork. And that's why, the DNR or whatever wildlife agency is in certain states looks at these different things. And that's why your season or your bag limits are changing every year, because they're guessing, making the best educated guess based on science. And then the next year they go, nope, we weren't quite right. Let's do it again the next year based on our numbers.
And that has an impact. And that has an impact in and of itself.
Right. If shooting less of a species is traditionally a good thing for the species,
it's like it's an actually never-ending moving target. It doesn't stop moving and shifting, even as you're shooting it. It's still going.
Everything is fluid.
And so, like, if I'm literally shooting a moving target and I'm shooting dead center, and then it jolts to the right, and I shoot, then I'm basing my next move off of that shot, but then the target moves again. So it could have been right, but well, now it's changing. It's just constant. So you're always just trying to be as close to center as maybe you can with some of those best guesses. That sounds like a fool's errand for me, because I could never handle that. I would I'd be like, I give up.
The nice part about it is then if you're wrong, you can adjust. Whereas like with math, if you're wrong, you're just wrong.
Yeah, or the weather,
so
or the
like,
weatherman.
We were supposed to say again.
It's like the farmer's almanac. Every year they're trying to predict crop growth, and I don't know. It's hard to predict stuff that you can actually see trends in. No one predicted COVID, so everyone's like, our 2020 forecast is going to be great, and then boom,
right.
The world changed, and you can't prepare for everything. It's insane.
I mean, and if you have a hard winter, that's going to maybe I'm using out west for an example, but like, it's a really hard winter. All those elk might come off the mountain a lot earlier. And that also means they're going to be more easily targeted by hunters. If you have a normal unit that normally has a, let's say, 10% success rate, and all of a sudden it's a really harsh winter and everything comes down to hay fields and feeds, and then there's a 25% success rate, and they go, oh shit, there's too many elk shot last year. We got to back those numbers down. Like, it's just a part of the game.
Yeah. And I'm assuming you're a deer hunter also. Obvious guess in Minnesota. And Wisconsin and Minnesota aren't too different in terms of terrain and habitat and environment and so forth. I mean, I think Minnesota arguably has maybe a slightly harsher winter, hence the nickname Minnesota. But
Right.
when is Minnesota's season open for bow?
Archery season is this Saturday.
Same for us.
Yeah,
Okay.
it mirrors ours.
And then our gun season is usually a little bit earlier than yours. It's the first full weekend in November. Always is.
And you guys are
So, I mean, like right in the red.
you guys are essentially a one buck state unless you're in a CWD zone, correct?
Right. They've come out with new regulations for the year, and they're a little bit more loose than they have been in the past. But yeah, down in the unit or area that I live in, you can shoot up to 3 deer, one of which can be a buck.
Gotcha.
I'm trying to think of. I'm waiting to see someone like ask a question in the comments, and I see some more comments coming through. And I know someone said, "Hey, Bison," literally, "Hey, Bison."
The ecology thing, and something that we're gonna have to deal with this weekend when we go out. I was just working yesterday, didn't have school, working on rebuilding some antlers, and I had a podcast going on TV. It was Exodus Outdoor Gear, and they were talking to Tony Peterson, one of the most renowned public land DIY going all over. He was talking about like Nebraska, for example, but he was saying like not just scouting for water or for food, but like if there's a heavy rain before you go and hot weather after, the mosquito hatches can be so bad. And he was talking about areas that have small woodlots like Nebraska, but the mosquitoes will be so bad in those the deer will evacuate. Even if they've been all there all summer.
Smart
also,
deer.
There's so many
That's
mosquitoes, they'll go bed somewhere where they can get a little bit of wind.
Sure.
Right. And it was like, man, that's part of ecology that not every deer hunt. Like you just look for sign and hunt deer. But here you got to think about that whole other aspect of like, they don't want to be pestered and bugged constantly and have 100 ticks on their ears. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
I am not looking forward to that part of the hunt. I'm not scared.
You're a little
like,
scared.
but I'm really like
kind of sounded scared.
I'm really fearful that it's going to ruin my time
Fear and
in a
scared
major
are
way.
the same thing.
I'm not scared, but I'm really fearful.
I'm really concerned about it.
You justify it and you're like, well, the deer won't be here either because they don't like bugs either.
Yeah, you just gave me a justification point. Like, Derek, why are we going to go where the deer aren't? You just told me they're not going to be there because mosquitoes are bad. What do you think? What do you think is going to happen to us? Thermocell, schmirmishell. It's not going to work.
It's supposed to be windy. That's a plus.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Wind, right?
You get up in a tree,
get high enough
in the
in the tree.
elevation, they don't bother you as bad.
Once you get up to about 1,000 feet, they won't be up.
Right.
So just bring all your things.
They can't breathe.
Aaron, are you going to brave the mosquitoes? Are you going out this weekend at all?
Well, I have 2 weddings this year, and they are on archery opener and gun opener.
Oh, I remember you telling me that.
So, I know. I have the worst friends. But I plan on getting out right in the, as soon as I get back. It's plant some stands this week, and then hopefully hit it a couple hours before work during the weeks. Plus, then you're not facing the crowds quite as much, I feel like, during the week as you get sometimes on the weekend.
Someone just
or
said,
at least less dog walk.
Right.
That's true.
Someone just commented, they hunted in 86-degree weather yesterday, seen a ton of deer at 4 p.m. Kept me from getting where I wanted to be on the field edge. Interesting. The heat, too, is just, this is a tough time of year. You got to take a really clean, tight shot so that deer's not going to run too far in the heat where you're going to, yeah.
That's ideal. That's ideal for sure to be able to do that, but it
doesn't always work that way. But it's more critical now than it is later in the season. It's kind of what I'm thinking. Greg just likes to hear himself talk over there. He's pulling up his phone for something.
No, I'm trying to see who it doesn't allow me to see who our Facebook users are.
It does that if they come through, I think, the Shooter Buck Club.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but if I click it, I'll probably have an audio problem, so I'm going to stay far away from that.
Yep, don't do it. That's why I checked it on the phone.
The audio problems.
So what can you tell us about being a boot specialist?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of ended up in in the, I don't know, I guess industry side of the hunting outdoor world. I moved to southeastern Minnesota. I was substitute teaching actually for a part-time gig for a little while, and found my way back into the outdoor space through Irish Setter Boots. They were looking for a hunting boot specialist, and they didn't have anybody at that point on the staff who really hunted. I mean, so they were focusing on a lot more of the work side of things. Needed somebody who could help them out with hunting boots. And so whether that was hiking versus rubber or tread pattern, or, why is Gore-Tex different than whatever, your more generic brand waterproofing. That was kind of the stuff that I enjoyed nerding out about on boots. The coolest part of the job was, you get the standard warranty questions and, hey, my sole came off, I need a resole, or I need a new set of laces. But the cool part was when you'd get somebody to call in from Alabama or Connecticut and say, hey, I just pulled my first elk tag. What kind of boots do I need? And I was going, well, are you archery hunting? Are you gun hunting? Is it early season, late season? Are you going high elevation, low elevation? And they're like, holy smokes, you had more questions than I did about this. And it's like, well, all of that stuff kind of, again, like systems, it plays in together. I don't just want to give you the elk tracker boot because you're going elk hunting. Like there's a time and a right place for that.
They have to be.
But if you're going to go early season, you need something super light, super fast that you're going to be chasing with. You don't want a super, it's bomb proof, but you don't want something super heavy.
Sure. Everything's it's application specific. I do tech support for a manufacturer, so guys will call in looking for a certain product, and then I come back at them with a pile of questions. What are you trying to do with it? Basically, what are the conditions of the system? So that's exactly what you have to do in order to really make the right decision.
Yeah, there's never a silver bullet, like one. If there was a one perfect answer for everything, we'd only make one boot. But some people, like even within the whitetail world, as that question come in, some people are hardcore, dyed in the wool. We got to have rubber. We got to have neoprene. Got to go scent free. And I think personally, that was something that the industry drove. At the time, there was a lot of folks focusing on that scent control piece of it, which, good on them. That's some people's go-to boot, and I don't fault them at all for it. But if I'm going to go try and hike in 3 miles, I'm not going to do it in rubber boots.
No,
I would rather have something.
I live in my rubber boots. I treat them like my Crocs. They're like, I have like, hey dudes, Crocs and rubber boots, and all of them are slippers. If that just doesn't show and highlight my okayness.
Rubber boots are not fun for hiking long distance, so anything over a mile is going to be pretty ugly.
I had no problem hiking over a mile in my rubber boots.
The trade-off for that, though, is like, so I usually wear like a hiking boot style myself, just because then for me it's more versatile. I can climb a tree in it. I can usually ford at least a little bit of a creek with it. They dry fairly fast, and I can be on the move without knowing I'm going to get blisters. So I usually go hiking boot style just because for me it's more versatile. I can use it in more applications. But like in the spring, if I'm turkey hunting, if you walk through enough dewy field, those boots are gonna get soaked. So in the spring, you get a lot of calls for leaking boots. But that's when you sort of have to explain waterproofing to people, that if it's meant to be a breathable boot, it's not a matter of if, but it's a matter of when. That boot eventually, I tell people, it's like a screen door. Waterproofing is like a screen door. If you take a screen door and flip it on its side and you put a few drips of water onto it and let it sit there, you can shake that screen door and it'll fleck off that water and it won't penetrate that screen. But if you put enough water onto that screen or shoot a garden hose through it, as if you were walking through a river, it's going to force its way through that membrane. Again, it's meant to breathe. It's meant to pull the moisture away from your feet, and that has to be a breathable membrane. So it's just how tight your chain link weave is and Gore-Tex has a lot more pores per square inch than another model might or another waterproofing membrane might, but ultimately they're all the same. It's just how tight your mesh is, and that's going to allow bigger water molecules to penetrate through in a less tight weave.
Aaron, have you used like waterproof gaiters with your, say, Gore-Tex hikers? Like, I know even for like dew, walking in a wet grass, having some knee-high gaiters on seems to really help that water, keeping it off the tongue of your boot or off your, your laces where it might soak in. Have you done that much before?
100%. Yeah, absolutely. I've done that. Most of my recent Western hunting, I'll at least bring a pair of gaiters just because they're so much lighter weight, and you can shed them when you need to, that you can dump that little bit of heat out of them, but they make a huge difference. And even, in whitetail seasons here, if there's 6+ inches of snow, I'm going to throw those on. And especially if it's in that 32-ish degrees, where you might get a little bit of sloppy snow, or, there's a crunchy layer on top of something that's softer. And it sucks to go climb a tree and then be sitting with that heavy layer of something on your feet. And I would much rather throw the gaiter on to keep myself dry, and then I can go climb the tree. I can pull them off and then shake those gaiters off and be dry to sit.
I gotta use mine more during hunting season. I haven't used them a ton unless I go in the morning and I know it's going to be dewy grass. But I might just throw on my rubber boots then too. But in the springtime, when I do some shed hunting and my spring scouting, if there's snow, like you said, I don't go out without my gaiters because I don't want to put on miles through snow. Just that play in your foot, I get blisters on my heel. But having my hikers on with the gaiters, man, that gets me through the entire winter, spring scouting, shed hunting. I love the gaiters.
I was just talking about gaiters at work today.
Really?
Yeah, and T&K hunting gear was part of the conversation, and I hear that theirs are pretty well made. I think most of what they make is pretty high
it's
quality.
All made in the USA stuff, right?
Yeah. I've not had a big need for gaiters with my approach so far, but Greg and I think, do you wear the gum leaf boots too?
I've got a pair. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I know they've tried to, maybe similar to what you had helped with, getting a boot into the whitetail and hunting category. They had not traditionally been. They were like farm boots. And then they're like, we have a product that we should, aim at whitetail hunters. So at some point we were working with them a while back. They're still friends of the brand. I think they're on our website actually. But their claim is like they're handmade and they are made with like real
rubber, 80% real rubber,
rather than like
much higher
PVC mixtures. And so they're less,
they last long.
They last long and don't break down as fast or get brittle.
Sure.
And I find that to be interesting. They're comfortable. Like I enjoy them. They're for a thinner foot. I have a pretty wide foot.
Yeah.
I know I'm saying foot.
They last long unless you throw them in the old ozone generator, like a lot of guys. So disclaimer for anybody who's playing with the ozone machines, ozone and rubber / elastic, they're not friends.
No,
so.
I've never thrown my boots in the ozone, but
you don't need to.
No, but they're comfortable. They're great. They fit for most use cases. But I'm the kind of guy. I mean, when I started hunting, I had all the stuff my dad got me, and it was the Mickey Mouse boots, and those are like from World War II or something, and those are the heaviest pair of boots ever.
So they are bomb proof.
Ever since I had enough money to start buying anything for hunting, the first thing I bought was boots. And I got I've been through Under Armour, Muck, Lacrosse, Irish Setter. I believe I had a pair. I've tried so many boots, and I've really only done the rubber ones. I don't know what it is with me, but I think it's just because the slipper. It's a slipper.
So, what's your favorite one? What's the go-to?
I like the gum leaves, but that's not great in winter because there's not a lot of insulation. So I just switched to I have now a winter boot. I forget what they're called. I got them at Fleet Farm.
Something insulated?
Yeah, they were a very hefty rubber boot. I can't remember the brand name.
Did you buy Camex?
Camex, yeah. Yeah, they're huge. The Camex Impact, I think, is the boot, and it's like I put it on. It looks like I'm going to war. They are giant. I look like I'm putting on like Iron Man suit or something, and those are my feet. But even with all that Thinsulate, I don't know. My feet just
get cold.
Yeah. So when I go gun hunting, I know I'm just going to sit for a long time because there's 600,000 people in the woods that weekend. I'm not trying to like walk around the woods a lot.
Piss everybody off.
Yeah, so when I just sit there, that's the one that I go with, and my feet do pretty good in those by and large.
Well, you stop generating heat, and all the moisture that you just built up
getting in there.
You can't get out of that boot. It's not a breathable boot, so it holds that moisture in there, and that rubber will dissipate the heat real fast. So you're kind of left with a dilemma. It's a pain in the butt. What I do though,
change your socks.
I do. I bring in change of merino wool socks.
Even with the merino wool on the way in, it's still not.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
you're still gonna soak it. You have to. You need a different pair of socks.
So what early season? The antithesis of that, I'm wearing rubber boots because I don't know, water. Who knows? But we're usually, when I'm with Greg, we're usually in some swamp or marsh.
We're in a swamp. You're not getting away with.
And I'm wearing rubber boots
in that terrain. Maybe up to a certain point, you might be able to get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
But even the muck doesn't do well in that. When the hiking boots is
you sink over your ankle. You just filled your socks.
Yeah. So then you're bringing a pair of socks again, anyways, right? Your feet are sweating so much by the time you get to where you're going.
I freaking pack in boots for gun season.
Yeah.
A lot of the spots I have to. Yeah, a lot of the spots, and maybe Aaron, maybe you hunt some spots like this, but I have a swamp to go across that's usually wet. So I wear rubber boots in. But then I pack in my Icemans, my big giant, insulated boots.
Where you're going to hit dry land, so you slide into those babies. And
pack the socks into the rubber boots, put a little plastic bag over them, garbage bag, and then I slide on some fresh socks, and that is like...
Baffin's the other boot I was thinking of. Baffin. They're the Canadian boot company. And they make the one called Impact. I was wrong about whatever I just said. The Camex is not Impact.
Camex also a Canadian boot company.
Oh, well, go figure. Anywho. But it's like, rated for mountain climbing at negative 200 degrees. I'm like, bullshit. My feet are still going to sweat and get cold.
Who's climbing a mountain?
I don't know. But I'm just saying, like, I'll let you chime in here. We've been chomping the...
Yeah, so you've packed in boots before, Aaron?
I have, yeah. I was going to say the biggest problem that I saw and had people contact me with, and I'm a freeze baby when it comes to cold feet. And for a long, long time. And I played hockey, and so my feet were always cold. And I tried to size down, or I guess use the appropriate like tennis shoe size that I thought I was. And so if I'm going a distance that I know I'm not going to be blistering my feet, I'll size up a little bit in boots, because having a little bit more room for your foot, because your foot's going to produce heat. So it needs to have a little bit of room, like in an oven, to cause a little convection, and there's a little bit of airflow within that toe box. It's like being in a sleeping bag that's too tight. So you have to have a little bit of toe box room for your foot to create heat, and then to trap that heat within that toe box. So I tell people, if you know that you're going to be sitting a lot, like consider sizing up. It's not for everybody, but if you know you're not going to be hiking in miles, size up. Otherwise, bring a second pair. It's an extra 3 pounds to pack a set of boots that you can slip on once you get there. The other thing I saw is people tried to wear 2 pairs of socks inside their boot. And if you didn't try two pairs of socks on when you bought those boots, 2 pairs of socks inside your pair is just going to cause more friction, and that's just going to rub. And I mean, it's not any better to wear 2 pairs of socks.
No. You actually cut
and you don't want to wear cotton, right? Like, don't wear cotton.
But you cut the circulation off to your feet when you get things that tight in there, and then you lost that air pocket in there as an insulator.
Having that extra room around your toe, like Aaron just said, is huge. Because what I found is I got those big Icemans, which like the insulative layer is like a big giant cushion around your foot. And I used to buy like great big heavyweight wool socks that took up that whole room. And then one time I just wore like my thin little merino wool hiking socks, and my feet were so much warmer because there was that air around it to insulate.
Well, that's
my
the other
feet
thing.
were like warm all day, and I was like, these are hiker socks, but there was room around my toes.
So when you're buying socks, you have thin, medium, and just like you have your underlayers that are like, hot weather, mid weather, and cold weather. It seems like it's all pretty similar. Like you really need to be dressing for the season across the board.
Yep.
Right. And that's why it's important to own many different styles and types.
That's why it's important to spend all your money on everything hunting. You need to have it. What pisses me off the most? What grinds my gears is early season. It's so short. Early season heat is like sucky as it's going to be this weekend. This is so short lived.
Oh yeah.
It's going to snap up real quick and get chilly. So my argument of like, buying early season gear is kind of like, meh.
I don't.
I'm going to go hunting like twice early season. Do I
don't have
really
early
need
season.
this stuff? Can I just take my shirt off?
I just got a bunch of crap I've used forever. Just normal.
It's just going to
normal
get
shit.
nasty, and that is what it is.
Yeah, it's gonna sweating it. It's gonna
But-
go in the wash.
But ideally, I would love to have some really nice gear for early season. I just can't justify it.
Early season gear for me is just the same gear as I would use during turkey season.
Well, yeah, if you're hunting turkey and another species of animals, if you're an ecologist and you understand all of the animals, this is quite the skill set. Ecology and boot. You really are a boot expert. That was really well navigated talk. That was a healthy conversation about boots.
What's your favorite pair of boots for early season?
Oh gosh, some brand's going to get some love today.
Like I said, I was kind of part and partial to the Irish setters. I used a model that they unfortunately discontinued, but it was a super breathable, but still had a really kind of heavy sole because it was super durable that I could use whether I was hunting mule deer and elk out west for archery season in September, or sitting early season for whitetails, or turkey hunting in the spring and knowing I was going to be running hunting. So it was a model called the Ravine that they unfortunately discontinued, but for me, it covered kind of the best of all worlds. Like I said, a lightweight upper with a medium to heavyweight sole. It needed to have some good traction and wasn't going to wear out after just a couple of seasons.
How high was that boot? Was it over the ankle, just below the ankle?
I had it in, when you work for a boot company, you justify a lot of extra boot purchases.
They don't just give them to you for product testing?
Well,
Guys,
luckily
I'm gonna be
I'm
the
a
expert.
size 13, so I was a test size. So I did get a chance to test size a couple or test product a couple, but I had a 7-inch pair that was probably my favorite. I've still got a pair, and before they went out of production, I bought a couple pairs of them. So I've just been going down the line, saving
Cycling
them.
them in, yeah.
There was a 400 gram 9-inch model that I liked as well, but kind of that 7-inch for me was good, and especially if I was going to use a gator, then now that's a knee-high boot.
Mm-hmm.
That's nice.
I'm really intrigued by the gators. But so then it's like, well, I got to buy a gator and a boot. And what does that put me at a price point? So then like the gum leaves, which are like, honestly, they're very expensive. But I'm also
But you're
going on
not gonna
season
wear
3 or
them.
4.
You're not going to wear them in a place where you're going to be hiking over a lot of rocks.
Well, that's
and
just it.
things.
But it's like, yeah, so now I'm buying 2 things and my price point is going up considerably.
Just buy all the things.
Just
You don't have to worry
buy it
about
it's
all
only
right away.
money,
Buy it
guys.
all.
Yeah,
It's only
just
money.
keep working.
But then I'm like, so when I went to the Boundary Waters, feet and shoes were a really big consideration because you're in wet stuff and dry stuff and wet stuff and dry stuff, wet stuff. So I did more research on a pair of shoes at the Boundary Waters than I put into like probably buying my house. And which is unhealthy, honestly. But I ended up going with this pair of Keens. And I did so much research that all 3 of my buddies bought the same pair of Keens that I bought. And like everything down to the sole of the shoe was like designed to handle that type of terrain. And it worked out really well. I mean, but after the end of the trip, those shoes stunk so bad. Like
yeah,
they
just
were
being
done.
wet
It was
and-
disgusting how bad they stunk. But it's like, yeah, so you really do want a different boot for different types of terrain. I have not ventured into like, should I get a leather pair of boots or like the hiking boot that you're talking about? Like, I don't even know where to start down that path. I've never done that. I've only done the rubber boots.
Well, I will say with the gators, I didn't buy them for whitetail hunting. I bought gators
For shed hunting.
for moose shed.
And you go up to
hunting
the
in
beach, the
particular, 'cause I
Boundary
go-
Water canoe
so,
area.
Yeah. And a lot of the areas that I was looking for moose sheds were really, really thick burned areas, they were so much regrowth. The idea was keep you waterproof and protect your shins. Rubber boots get torn to crap over stumps and all log
Especially
areas.
Yeah.
neoprene
They
type
get ripped.
ones.
Yep.
But
I won't-
having that double cordura over your shins, like, saved
It's like a
my
shin guard
life
when
a
you're
couple-
playing
yeah,
soccer,
I mean,
huh?
it was like amazing.
Do you play
like,
soccer in your gators?
Yeah, I do.
What's
A
that
gator
quote?
over my shin guard.
Gators bitches
Keep
better be
them
wearing
dry.
jimmies. Is that- I was like,
Jesus.
what's that
Oh man,
quote?
I see a new meme coming.
The other guys.
Maybe you come out with an okayest gator,
Yeah.
and then you're covered.
It's just a full body bag. Mosquitoes. It's
Mosquito
mosquito proof.
waterproof.
The okay, Gator. Just stay home.
Like what,
Just
It even keeps the farts in.
Everyone says you can't kill them from the couch. I'm like, have you not tried to drink a beer on the couch before? I'm killing these things just fine. What are you talking about? Bush lattes all day, buddy. I tell you. Man, so you must have a lot of pairs of boots. I do too, though. I really do. My wife's like, how many shoes and boots do you need? I'm like, yes. I don't know. And when I was working like in IT, I had to have fancy shoes also. And that got stupid too. Well, I need to have these ones and brown ones and black ones and loafers and ones with laces. And but again, for me, it always just comes into being a slipper.
Lucky or unlucky, I don't know what you'd call it, but I don't have test size feet like Aaron does that are like common sizes. So back when Cabela's,
You got those Hobbit feet.
I got Hobbit feet. Yeah, they're short, they're wide, and they make perfect bargain cave boot buys because when Cabela's had the bargain cave, the boots that sat on the shelf forever were like the 8.5 double wides. And I was like, hey, I see you over there hiding in the back.
I can never find
you're
my size.
90% off?
I'm like
Yes,
the
I'll take
size.
the Mendel boots for $70.
What are you,
Yes.
Greg? 12?
13.
13. That is a big
Yeah.
boy. I'm a
13
12.
and a
12 's like 11 and 12 are so common. Like, I'll find a shoe or a boot that I like, and then they don't have it because it's sold out.
Yep.
It drives me crazy.
Just cut your toes off.
For us,
Sure.
they used to make every new size or every new style in a 9, and then if it passed out of 9, then they would test it in 11 and 13, and if it passed out of that, then they'd push it into mass production. So I had to make it through like the first couple of
Oh my
steps
God.
before they
Come
would
on, guys.
say, you can have a boot.
That's wild. So where do people find you? Are you on Instagram, on Facebook? Like, do we talk about backcountry hunters and anglers with what you're doing there? Is there anything you want to do to like kind of wrap things up here and really cover the whole gambit of what you have going on based on that, all the accolades you had in your intro?
Sure. Yeah. So my Instagram handle is Hey, HEY _Bison. And Facebook is just my name, Aaron Hebeisen. So now, after the boot company, found myself, actually while I was at the boot company, was volunteering with backcountry hunters and anglers. In 2015, I went on an antelope hunt for this dude behind me, and was out, you're going out west and a lot of what you're doing is on public land. I mean, I had family land growing up, so we never thought too wildly about public land. It was just like the place you could go when you had hunted out your properties, or you weren't in the area and you're like, let's try something new. But going out west, like you pretty much have to use public land. There's so much of it, and I didn't really figure out why, or understand why it was the way it was until seeing it out there. And you're like, oh, holy smokes, there's all of this place. And this was before OnX. And, you're going places and you're pulling up plat maps and looking for no trespassing signs, because in the Midwest, you have to post those every so often. And out west, it's the hunter's responsibility to know what's public and private. Well, if it's not posted, we kind of got ourselves in some hot water, and we're out doing a stock on what we thought was public. And the rancher comes out shaking a fist at us that we were trespassing. And after that, I was like, I'm not going to hunt this state anymore. Like, I was pissed off at Wyoming, and I was like, hunting out west sucks. Luckily, we were able to get on some animals on true public. And I mean, that's, like I said, where I got this antelope. But, you do it enough times and you're like, I'm on public land and I can see public land, but there's this gate here that there's nothing about a gate on a map. But some rancher decided to throw a gate up across what was a public road. And it really made me be like, I'm not going to do this Western thing again. Fast forward 6 months, and I found out about this organization called Backcountry Hunters and Anglers that was advocating and trying to bring awareness to the situation out west. And at that point, it was fairly small. I joined the Minnesota chapter. I said, sign me up. I'm about this. And that was in 2016. And at that point, I think I was the 107th member to join the state chapter. And they saw this, 25-year-old kid who they're like, holy smokes, he's interested in this. Like,
the FBI has looked into him. He is good.
He's okay. We can accept that application.
They're like, look at all this stuff that he says he does. He might be lying, but it sounds great. So I started volunteering for BHA in 2016, and fast forward, over 5 years, it finally led to a staff position working as the chapter coordinator for those Midwestern chapters that you mentioned.
That's awesome. That's a pretty cool testimony and
great
rite of
organization.
passage. Yeah, that's awesome, man. And it's cool that you. What's the saying? You be the change you seek to make in the world, or whatever the damn quote is by some smart person.
Yeah, right. Something way deeper than we can get to. But yeah, I mean, it was. I saw all those issues in the West, and then kind of brought it back home, and was like, holy shit, we have such great public access here in the Midwest, both Minnesota, Wisconsin. I mean, we have a fair amount of public land. And water access is everywhere. If you're in Wyoming and you are floating a river, if you drop an anchor or wade through it, and there's a landowner on either side of that river, they own the stream bed itself. So if you put a foot down or drop an anchor, you're trespassing. And so knowing that, coming back to the Midwest and going, I can walk down a creek, I can drop it into a culvert and walk down this creek, and there could be the same landowner on A and on side B, and I'm never trespassing if I'm walking down that creek. And knowing how good our access is here, and kind of using that as a cautionary tale, saying, look how good we have it, but this other place over here, we could lose this. It's ours till it's not. So let's advocate to protect for this. And I just recently, through this position, found out in Illinois, they're going through water access issues right now, because not only do a landowner that owns property adjacent to a creek in Illinois own the stream bed, but they own the water flowing itself. So if you are floating a river through Illinois and someone owns the land or the shoreline, you're trespassing by just floating on that river. And so they're really advocating to try and open up water access in Illinois, and I think bring attention to it, because I don't think a lot of folks that are going float tubing, going, float fishing down. I mean, there's float tube companies who are taking guided tours down these places that are technically trespassing, and they don't know it because of that.
Because it's so effing ridiculous that someone would claim that.
I will back.
Does Wisconsin own the Mississippi, or does Minnesota own the Mississippi? Is it half and half because we share banks on both sides? Is it the county that buttresses up to that? That at some point when it's not done at that caliber and that scale, then what the hell are we doing with a creek? Maybe if the creek is tiny, 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 and it's not floatable, so to speak. But if you're talking small waterways and rivers where you can actually do that kind of activity, you gotta. It's good to hear you guys are advocating to fight that BS.
Or if we live next to each other, and I live upstream of Derek, and my water flows downstream, is my water now trespassing on Derek's water?
Right.
It's a river. Things flow through and down it. That's super strange.
What you said, Aaron, I think you and I talked about this at that BHA event, but in Illinois, you said not a lot of people know that. I called and asked that question because coming from Wisconsin, we can access public lands through water.
There's so much you don't know.
And I had a spot I wanted to check out, and I was like, I don't know what the rules in Illinois. So I called the DNR station, and I spoke with the warden, and the warden was baffled when I asked. They were like, I actually don't know what the law is on that. And I was like,
man.
Well, can you find out? Because I'm going hunting tomorrow, kind of, it's my bad for not asking sooner, but they literally didn't know. And they were like, yeah, I think you can, but they didn't.
Well, just you can't own the game on a property. No one owns the deer. You shouldn't own the water because it's fluid, literally fluid.
Nothing more fluid.
Terrible term to use for this description, but yeah, it's not ever there for more than 2 seconds. It's there and then it's gone. You can't own it. It's passing through. It's just kind of strange that's something that someone might claim. Yeah. The Bunchwater Canoe area, which we talked about a couple times already. It borders Minnesota and Canada. No one owns the waterways. No. Although you do pass into Canada a couple times, so I think you need to be prepared to have your, I don't know, at least Canadian fishing
There is
license.
those shared areas that the border runs through the water, the lake.
I think the water goes into the bordered side of the
Unlike Michigan's the same way. You get past a certain point,
and you're not in.
We're
not in Wisconsin no more.
Wisconsin
Toto.
water anymore.
Right.
Yep, we're in Michigan.
And state and provincial agencies are pretty good about respecting each other's lines of like, well, we're going to honor whatever rules you have and vice versa on a lot of those like border waters. And I know with the boundary water, it's like typically, even if you're going to plan to stay in Minnesota, a lot of times when you're landing your boat into the boundary waters or taking off, you usually call in and say, hey, we're headed in. And you call in just in case you cross into Canada or, land on an island out there that happens to be in Canada's property.
Back to boots, because Tony asked a great question. Actually, I'm curious about this.
I've always wondered myself.
Yeah, are the heated insoles worth the shit? And the way he asked the question is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So I would have asked it, Tony.
Because that's an investment, right?
Well, it's interesting.
Right.
And they have the heated, but you also have those, just so you can get your hand warmer packs. They have those for your boots. Those sticky things you put in there.
They might even still have heated socks where you put the battery packs in there and you turn them on. But
if you're sitting and you've brought in a pair of...
I think any of that heat source stuff might be worth a darn if you wear the proper footwear and don't douse them in your sweat.
Yeah, probably. Okay, go on. I want to hear the expert talk about it.
Yeah. So,
He's
I thought Tony's question too. So he talks about the Pinnacle boots, which are after the ravine was gone. It's like an all leather. The leather is USA made. It's Red Wing's proprietary leather, and they are like bomb proof. They are awesome. They are what he describes as totally right. They are perfect in almost every way. Unless you've got hot feet, then they don't breathe as well because they're leather, and that's just the plus and minus of leather. But as far as heated insoles, I haven't found them to work for me because I'm such a freeze baby that if I'm walking in them, I'm going to sweat. And then I've got I'm sort of like raising my foot off of the footbed within the boot of like hot foot. And, it's sweating. And then I have to take it all out because it's too hot. And now I've got a cold, sweaty foot that's outside of a boot and it's not doing anybody anything. If someone could figure out, you have cold feet, and you put those heated insoles in once you got out into the stand and you weren't going to move around anymore, maybe that would work for you. For me, where I've found to get the coldest is on the top of my feet. So I'll usually do the totally old school thing about putting like a piece of cardboard or something under your feet. And then I'll sometimes take either a jacket or those goofy looking booties that slide up over the top of your boot.
Yeah, boot blankets.
Great. Yeah. And for me, it's blocking the wind from the top, because if it's a breathable style of boot, a lot more of that cold air is coming in through the top of that breathable boot. And that's what's getting cold on me first. The bottoms could still be sweating, but if I've got the top of my foot not blocked from air, then those are going to get cold.
Last season when I was in the saddle, it was warm enough that I was warm enough without my jacket, but I had enough going on my upper layer that I was good, but my feet were getting cold. So I took my jacket and I stuffed each foot into the arm of my jacket and tied that around and my feet, it was the best hack I had ever discovered. I think Byron Horton, with Whitetail Experience,
he actually does the sock.
The sock.
Hack.
I took it a step further. I didn't give him credit, but I used my jacket, and it game changed the whole situation for me.
So now we need a $300 puffy. So we can put our feet in
it. It wasn't a puffy. It was probably like a $80 Wally World.
Thin enough boots, small enough boots, and you have a big enough pair of old crappy wool socks that you can cut off and just put around, the toe box at least up to the arch of your foot. You're probably going to be miles ahead. It
was incredible. Honestly, I was like, thank goodness I had this figured out. And so even if you can just bring like a hoodie, I don't know, or the sock, whatever. I'm probably like not the right guy to listen to here because you guys all have better solutions, but it worked for me in that situation.
If that's what you have, you make it work, right? If you have it, you make it work. I think that's good.
He's putting Patagonia on his feet.
Yeah, right. No, it was a cheapie.
I'll sometimes just stack my backpack up over the fronts of my toes and just like squat if I'm on the ground or something like that, block that breeze with the backpack that I've got. I saw Tony's question come in about the new wireless insoles. I haven't personally used wireless insoles. For me, anything more electronic tends to go wrong. So the more technology I use, it's one more thing that can fail me in the field.
Preaching to the choir
So
here.
I use fixed broadheads, whatever. If it's mechanical, it tends to go wrong on me. So I haven't used them, but I can't speak to the electronic.
I think that would be a neat way to go if they're not powered on until you need them. If they're heating your feet on the walk in, it's excessive. And if your feet finally cool off and you can crank that thing on for a little bit, that's probably a pretty interesting mechanism, I would imagine.
And I think it's the same with like the heated vests people wear, underneath.
Like,
yeah, when you start to find the
turn
cool
it
off
on when you walk in,
right?
Like when you've been sitting for an hour and you start to get the chill and you crank it up. I think that the wireless ones would.
I never understood that when I first
try
got
it.
into hunting as a kid with my dad. He'd be like just ruined with sweat. Hot. He's like, oh, I'm hot. Rah.
Did he wear everything on the
well, but on the way in, he would.
he did.
Yeah,
Cotton
I think
underwear too.
no, he's the one that taught me. He literally he'll still say it to this day. Cotton kills. But I wouldn't layer down. I would be like, "Are you freaking nuts? You're taking all your clothes off when you go out into the woods? Like, what is wrong with you?" I was like, "Not a chance." And I would, sweat my ass into the Northwoods as a big orange blob, like the kid from A Christmas Story. Just, Michelin man my way out there. And I would be hot, and then I would cool off. I would, at that point, take it all off and cool off and let it air out and stuff. And then I'd zip back up, and I was fine. I could handle it when I was young. Now I'm like my dad. I'm like, I'll go in wearing next to as little as I possibly can on the way in until I need it. So that's
for sure. Walking cold and boots are the same way. If you can walk in cold, you're gonna appreciate it a lot better.
Layer up when you're settled in, then you layer up, and then you're much better off.
Yeah. Joel, won't be long before there will be Bluetooth feet warmers. That's what those electric ones might be.
I think they have those.
It might be already. Yeah, I think we're here.
Surprised.
We're living in the future, Joel.
I think what we have to do now, it's been determined that we need to make a saddle platform that has like
the jacket built into it.
Built-in, little hood.
Except for when it gets wet, it's just disgusting.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe not.
Well, then you can waterproof it.
I mean, it sounds super corny, but people talk about going and ice fishing and standing on a piece of cardboard. But that little layer, that super thin quarter-inch of insulation
I'll tell you what,
between your own foot and the ice.
You go as a contractor, go do a job in an unheated space with concrete poured, and nothing will suck the heat out of you quicker than a frozen cold job site with concrete. You're walking on cold concrete, call it 20 degrees out, and you're trying to put heat in a building. We would lay down cardboard or we would walk on sheets of plywood, and it would be surprised how much that helped.
Well, I used to, when I first started ice fishing, we had a pop-up shanty and it was plywood. And then later on, I got one of those pop-up ones that just pops up over the ice. And I was like, man, the other one was better.
Yeah, way colder when you're on the ice.
Yeah. Yep. Anyway, good stuff, man. Thanks for jamming out with us. And, is there any way that folks can help out with this, like water access BS that's going on? Do we need to join backcountry hunters and anglers? How, let's bring the plane in for landing here.
Yeah, for sure. No, so depending on your state, we've got chapters in 48 states for backcountry hunters and anglers. It's a nationwide organization. We've got about 30,000 members nationwide. So Minnesota and Wisconsin are in the top, I think, 6 and 7 or 5 and 6 right now as far as population size. Wisconsin's got 1,200 members and Minnesota's got 14. So we have a good representation in the Midwest, and we're growing every month. So if people want to join, it is currently Public Lands Month. And so that means that we're doing all kinds of stuff on bringing awareness to different access projects, doing local events and get-togethers, doing work projects, fence removals, boat ramp cleanups. Depending on your state, there's probably a project going on. So if you do go to backcountryhunters.org, if you do it right now, do backcountryhunters.org/free before the end of the month. And in addition to the normal quarterly journal, stickers, discounts from corporate partners that you'll always get, they are giving away right now a BHA Gerber knife. So for the cost of basically a knife, you can join BHA and get all those benefits. And then you're going to also get updates from anything that the mothership at BHA headquarters does, as well as updates on when things are happening in your area. And maybe, Derek, you got the emails, but today I sent out an email for a pint night that's going on tomorrow night in La Crosse.
Yep.
So, yeah, for example, I mean, that's events that are going on all over the place across the country, from chapters doing killer work, like I said, whether that's get-togethers that are just meant to be casual, social, get out and share the hype before the season, or through boots on the ground projects of boat ramp cleanups, trail cleanups, fence removals on public lands. Like, we're doing the work as well as, getting out and getting each other excited about the season.
Yeah, it's a great mix. Like Aaron said, they have projects that you can do to really better your area, your environment, your access. And I know the first event I went to was just a fun one. It was a pint night up in Green Bay. We went to one of the old cinemas and the full draw film tour. We watched some hunting videos, met with other members, had a couple beers. And then I just met with Aaron this past summer at the State Rendezvous, which was a really good time. And I can't wait to go to again next year. Great.
That was a fun
organization.
event.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
good.
Yes, yeah, we had a booth there. Even you guys invited us.
Pretty awesome.
Hopefully, you didn't regret that choice.
No, but Derek's kind of sandbagging, going and doing all these archery shoots. I know you guys had one at HorrorCon then too. So I listened to your last episode about season prep, and it sounds like he's just jumping ahead of everybody, but he's just going out and shooting all these archery shoots.
Trying,
Yeah.
man. Yeah. Trying to get things squared away and ready to go here.
That HorrorCon Bowman, they have a really cool course. We got to shoot it after our event. I didn't get to shoot it when we were at the BHA one because people just kept coming up to our table and I couldn't leave it.
Which is awesome.
So it's fine. And Greg's bow is still in the shop, I think.
Mhm.
You did have it for a little bit there where you broke it.
I had it just in time for the event. We didn't take much time to shoot, and then I broke it. So,
and here we are.
Here we are.
Just about to get in season. You got a loaner bow, and we're about as set as we can be. So thanks for hanging out with us tonight on the show. Again, for folks that tuned in live, it'll be in podcast land this evening. If you're listening live, thanks for tuning in. A shameless plug for ratings and reviews. If you like what you hear, leave us one. And if you don't like something, tell us about it so we can make improvements. We're always happy to get feedback as long as it's constructive and you're not being an a-hole about it. We'll listen. If you're being an a-hole about it, we'll probably perseverate for a little bit and then still be nice.
It's all good.
But no, Aaron, we appreciate your time and thanks for hanging in there with us through the technical, crap storm that we navigated. Thanks for that and hanging out there. And we'll end the live broadcast. If you want to hang out for a minute here, we'll chat with you. And everybody have a great night.
See ya.
No problem, guys. Good luck this season.
Yeah, you too.